Hi, my name is Lucy and welcome to my presentation about my new innovative business model called Transforming Food Waste into Nutritious School Lunches. Each year, tons of food is being thrown into landfill because they don't meet the cosmetic requirements of supermarkets. Now, isn't that such a waste of perfectly good edible food? Each year, farmers are forced to throw up to 40% of their produce away because they cannot sell it to the supermarkets. In Australia, nearly 44 million tons of food ends up in landfill. On the other hand, there are many Australian children who are going to school without any lunch. This report shows that 1 in 5 children are missing meals at school, and this is impacting their ability to learn and strive. Much of the time, children are enlisted with the task of preparing their own lunches, such as very basic Vegemite sandwiches. Now, this has very limited nutrition and is very bland in taste. Because Australian schools don't have any cafeterias, the only other option for children will be purchased from the school canteen. Canteen food is often very unhealthy and is full of junk. This table shows that the most popular foods purchased from Australian school canteens are chicken nuggets, hot dogs, pies, and sausage rolls. So, I want to propose a new solution. Food that is unable to be sold to the supermarket can be sold to me. And farmers would accept a very low price for the produce because they would otherwise be thrown away anyway. I will utilize that produce to make school lunches and distribute it to school children. The food would be healthy, delicious, and at a very good price. My offering would be unique because the product would be very simplified. There is no menu to order from. You only choose between a meat or vegetarian option. And each day the children would be given a different type of meal. The pricing is also novel because it utilizes a subscription model. So at the beginning of the term, the child or the parent pays for a subscription of either 3 lunches a week or 5 lunches a week for the entire term. The pricing is also very accessible to ensure that it will attract significant demand. And the food is not packaged, so it is served directly into the child's empty lunchbox. This ensures that it is a sustainable alternative to plastic containers. Or if the child doesn't have a lunchbox, then they can pay 50 cents for an eco-plastic container. This is an example of what the lunch offering would look like. So this is a simple stir fry that is easy to make, but also healthy and delicious too. Okay, now let's look at the value propositions of the existing offerings and see how ours differ from the competition. As you can see from this value curve of homemade lunches, it is the most low-cost option, but it is very inconvenient to have to prepare lunches every morning, and Australian homemade lunches in general are not very tasty. Okay, now you can see the value curve of canteen food in blue. As you can see, it is a much more convenient option as you can purchase the food at school, but the level of nutrition is disastrous. Most of it is unhealthy junk food. The degree of variety is moderate. It does have a menu of options, but they do not change. So it's always the same options all the time, and Australian children do find it to be moderately tasty. Okay, now let's look at how our option compares. So its price attractiveness is much higher than that of canteen food, but not as high as homemade food. However, the level of nutrition is much higher than both homemade and canteen food. It's also very tasty and convenient. And there is a higher degree of variety because every day you are getting a different type of meal. and it is much more sustainable than the other two options due to the fact that it decreases food waste and minimizes the use of packaging. Now, I have utilized a number of directions to create this innovative value proposition. So firstly, I used the first direction of reducing the client's price by lowering the cost of food produce, labor, and packaging. I also used the second direction of reducing the client's hassles because they no longer need to prepare the lunches, and the lunches are prepaid for the whole term. I am also utilizing the third direction of looking for non-clients, so those that are not purchasing canteen food, and exploring why that is. I'm also using the fourth direction of introducing emotion into the offering by presenting my solution as a benevolent cause of improving the health of school children. And lastly, I have used the seventh direction of modifying the revenue stream by utilizing the subscription model. Now let's explore the value architecture of this business model. As you can see, the sales activity actually happens first. This is very different to the usual way of selling lunches, as the sales normally occurs last. This is due to the prepaid subscription model, which allows the revenue stream to occur early in the value chain. The sourcing differs from conventional models because typically sourcing occurs at the supermarket or at food markets, but in this case it comes directly from the farms and source specifically the foods that are rejected by the supermarkets and would otherwise be thrown away. The cooking process is very efficient because you only cook two varieties of meals, the meat option and the veg option, in very large batches. And the meals produced is based on whatever vegetables or fruits are available. And this lowers labor costs. Food is normally packaged in plastic containers, but in our case, it's not packaged. So there is little packaging costs and no labor costs. Distribution is very efficient because the food is sent to school canteens for all the children in that school. So this lowers transport costs, and there are no costs associated with setting up retail shops. So I have utilized three directions to create this innovative value architecture. So I used direction 9, which is to modify steps in the value chain. So the steps I modified were to source food from farms that supermarkets reject, and also by utilizing the subscription model, so lunches are pre-ordered and not sold. I also used direction 10 to cut down on costs, which is to eliminate steps in the value chain. So there are no menu options and little packaging involved. Also, I used direction 14, which is to find new resources. So instead of going to the supermarket or the food markets, I have sourced food from farmers. And finally, let's look at the profit equation of this business model. So when looking at the revenue, the prices are low, but they are offset by large volumes. So in general, revenues should remain high. The prepaid subscription model also stabilizes the revenue stream and enables forward budget planning. In general, costs are much lower than the traditional model. So firstly, we've minimized ingredient costs by sourcing rejected farm produce. Secondly, we've increased cooking efficiencies to lower labor costs. We don't have any packaging, so that also lowers labor costs and packaging costs. And we also have an efficient distribution system, which lowers transport costs, and there are no retail costs. The only fixed assets are the kitchen facility and the transport vehicles to deliver the food and the raw produce. And there is a lack of retail spaces in cafeterias, which lowers the asset investment required. And lastly, the working capital is negative. That's because of the prepaid subscription model. So the accounts payable is very high and accounts receivable is minimal, which results in the negative working capital. Food inventories also remain low due to the immediate use of fresh produce. Thank you very much for watching my presentation. Bye.